of the Sonoma City Council, Monday, November 2nd, 6 p.m. Go ahead and call this meeting to order and do the Pledge of Allegiance. We could have the stars and stripes. And it's kind of scrunched in there today. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
undivided,
indivisible, liberty and justice.
Sounds like first grade class.
Messed that one up, I think. All right, great. So we will move on to explain the public comment process for these meetings. So we are having a virtual meeting as permitted under the emergency ordinance signed by Governor Newsom, which allows for virtual meetings. So this is the way that public comment works. There's two ways to make public comment. One, you can raise your hand virtually and we'll acknowledge you. If you're calling in on your phone, you can do *9 and just wait for us to call for public comment to do that. If you raise your hand, we'll bring you into the meeting. We'll have general public comment first, and then obviously public comment on every item that we bring up after that. You may also email us, public comment at sonomacity.gov or sonomacity.org. I apologize, public comment at sonomacity.org. You can email us, and we will take those emails anytime between now and the end of public comment for whatever agenda item. So if you email now for an item that's down the agenda, that's totally fine, and we'll have Latanya read it for you. In either case, we're only going to allow 3 minutes for public comment, either 3 minutes that it takes us to read it or 3 minutes for you to speak your mind. So I'll kind of butt in, 1 minute left, 30 seconds left. Usually we have a timer if we're in the office, but at this time we're not in the chambers. So just don't be offended if I butt in that way. It's not to be rude. It's just we got to keep things moving and give other members of the public a chance to speak. Moving on. And that's how it'll work. If we do get Zoom bombed, occasionally this has been happening where people have been hacking into the system or trying to take over the meeting. If that happens, we either try to kick that person out, we may pause the meeting, no actions will be taken off the screen. And if we're unable to restart the meeting without this kind of interruption, then we will completely stop the meeting and re-adjourn at a different date. With that, we'll move on to the roll call. And I should note that Councilmember Cook will not be joining us this evening.
Councilmember Agrimonti.
Here.
Vice Mayor Hundley.
Here.
Councilmember Harrington.
Present.
Mayor Harvey.
Present.
Thank you.
Great. We'll move on to approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Agrimonti.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hundley.
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-0-1.
All right. Moving on to public comment. At this time, members of the public may comment on an item not appearing on the agenda. It is recommended that you keep your comments under 3 minutes, as we discussed. Unless otherwise permitted under the Ralph M. Brown Act, merits of the matters presented under this item cannot be discussed or acted upon by the City Council at this time. For items appearing on the agenda, the public will be invited to make comments at the time that item comes up for council consideration. Upon being acknowledged by myself, please begin by stating and spelling your name. And again, you'll have 3 minutes to make a comment. So we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. And anybody wishing to make a public comment may raise their hands now. And if you're calling in, dial *9 and that will raise your hand for you. I'm seeing nobody raise their hand. I will go ahead and close public comment. Great. Moving on, meeting dedications. Do we have any meeting dedications this evening?
None for me.
All right, none. Moving on again. Going on to the consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the council, staff, or public request specific items to be removed for separate action. This time, the council may change the order of the agenda. Do we have any member of council's questions or wishing to pull an item of consent calendar?
Yes, this is Agrimonti. I'd like to pull 4.2 just for a quick discussion.
Okay, we'll have item 4.2 pulled. Do we have a motion on the consent calendar? Oh, we got to go to public comment. That's correct. So we'll open it up for the public to comment on consent calendar. Public comment is open. Seeing no one rise or raise their hands, I'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the council for approval of item 4.1. So we need a motion for item 4.1, and we're going to pull item 4.2.
So move on 4.1.
Great.
Second.
Second. All right. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Agrimonti,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hundley,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 402. And we'll bring the city manager and the deputy finance person up for this item for 4.2.
Great.
Kathy, you're muted.
Thank you. So we'll bring forward Sue Casey, our Assistant City Manager, and Colleen Ferguson, our Public Works Director, who worked on this item. So I'm just going to get background, and then we'll hear Sue and Colleen can answer any further questions council has them. So council, as you were aware, back in May, we brought forward a resolution to defer water rate increases for 6 months. The council approved that, and we are now at that 6-month juncture. So January 1 rates would increase and affected the 7.5% that had been previously agreed to by the council. In terms of, we did want to, just as a report, bring this forward. Staff does need to put out notices with the water rates starting this next week about the rate increase. And if council, and so based on your prior recommendation, this was a 6-month deferral, and we are moving forward to continue the rate increase starting January 1. If council has alternative direction and would want to defer it for another 6 months, you can give us that direction. We will bring a resolution back to the next meeting to do so. Staff is recommending that we do move forward. There are the overall water rates go to a variety of capital projects that the council has approved. And when we delay the rates, we delayed some of these projects moving forward. If you have more specific questions, I will let Sue and Colleen answer those. And so I will turn to Councilmember Agrimonti, who pulled this item.
Okay. So in the I guess the delay, deferring the rate increase for 6 months. Of course, it's up right now. And the reason I'm asking this question is somewhere, and I've lost it in the information here. I think what I read was how difficult it is for people now being unemployed. All of these horrible things that are happening to so many of our citizens. So those same issues exist. So I just wanted to know, what does this mean? I don't know what projects might be delayed because of this, so I really have no reference on that. I have to trust our city manager that that's what will happen. But I just want to know, our residents' positions have not changed. It's still the same, I would imagine. And so I'm just asking that question.
So let me just speak broadly, and then I'll turn it to Colleen, and Sue can ask more questions. So there was an executive order that the governor passed in April that basically restricts water shutoffs. So if someone is not able to pay, we can't turn off water shutoffs during the pandemic. So part of what it does is it, those folks that aren't able to do it, we would set up a long-term payment plan. We would not shut off water, and those folks are still protected. But for folks who are able to pay, we're able to continue to move forward and gather some of the cost increases, fee revenue that we need in order to continue to, have the funding come in for the water system. And I'll let Colleen and or Sue add to that. Thank you.
Councilmember Agrimonti and the rest of the city council, a perspective on water rate increases to keep in mind is that our cost to buy water from Sonoma Water down the Sonoma Aqueduct did go up on July 1st. So our cost increased. Our costs increased. We did not increase our revenue. We delayed increasing the city revenue in response to that increase in our rates. Just all things considered with the pandemic. And while we have delayed some projects, I think of the water system overall as so critical to everyone's lives. And often when we delay a water rate increase, what we're doing is deferring it for people to pay in the future. The water system overall has certain costs to operate. The projects have to get done at some point. So when we make a choice to delay a rate increase, we're just putting it off. And so there will be greater rate increases in the future to keep a viable water system for the city.
So I thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. Mayor, could I just make a comment right now? Thank you. So I appreciate the explanation. I agree, but I think I wanted the public to know about what Governor Newsom did. Governor Gavin Newsom signed an executive order that restricts water shutoffs. So that means if even in spite of the fact if we raise the rates, people can't meet them, their water will not be shut off. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, for the most vulnerable parts of the population that are not able to pay their water bill, we will not shut their water off.
Okay. And that's really what I wanted to hear. So I'm fine now.
Thank you, Madeline. That's an important point. Great. Any other members of council wishing to make comments?
Are we going to have public comment on this item?
We
Me too. Yes.
Yep.
So you want to open up? Okay. Go ahead and open it up for public comment. Seeing no one rise, I'll go ahead and bring it back to council. Members of council that would like to make a comment? Go ahead, Amy.
Oh, I would just echo what you said. Thank you, Madeline, for bringing this forward. I think it's important for people to know that if you're having a problem paying for utility, that they're still going to have basic city services, even if they're in economic hardship. And I think it is an important opportunity to highlight that, even though it's in the context of a rate increase. So appreciate it being pulled.
Vice Mayor Hundley, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I have a question and a comment. Our next regularly scheduled increase would be this coming July. Would that be normal? I mean, I support the increase today because I don't think that we should push things back too much, but I do think that before that increase comes up, we can have a similar exercise of whether we want to push it to January again, just depending on what the economy is doing and how people are doing. But for today, I think that it's good that we keep moving forward so we don't fall too far behind.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say by that time, we're going to have a much more, we'll be doing a financial update for the water system by them. And it's a little hard to do it right now because we're only 3 months into the year and we're in the, high usage part of the year. And so we are paying, we are buying more water, more water is being used. And also we have more people at home. So more people are using more water. And so it's a little hard to make a comparison even to the prior year or almost to the water rate study because they didn't anticipate a pandemic or people staying at home. So we'll be doing a much more, deeper dive into the financials and we'll have a lot more information at that time. So.
Thank you.
Great. All right. Do we have a motion on this item?
Move to approve 4.2.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Agrimonti,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hundley,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
We couldn't hear you.
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 401.
All right. Moving on to our regular calendar. Item 6.1, discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve a climate emergency resolution, approve a resolution creating a joint action subcommittee, and make appointments. City manager. And do we have, is Travis Wagner in here?
Travis Wagner will bring Travis Wagner, our sustainability coordinator, up, and I'll just open just as a reminder. Council, you did hear this a bit ago. I don't want to take all of Travis's conversation here. But we also you had an ad hoc steering committee comprised of Vice Mayor Hundley and Councilmember Agrimonti that worked with staff. And so they may want to make comments after Travis does his staff report. So with that, I'll turn it to Travis.
Mayor Harvey and City Councilors, good evening. Back on June 1st, the City Council unanimously endorsed the proposed climate emergency resolution, which was a hybrid between the Community Services and Environment Commission's recommended version and the staff's recommended version. The outstanding issue of the resolution was language regarding the proposed Climate Action Joint Council CSEC subcommittee that would guide the attainment of the climate emergency resolution goals of net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 for municipal operations as well as citywide. At the June 1st meeting, Vice Mayor Hundley and Councilor Agrimonti agreed to serve on an ad hoc subcommittee to draft the scope and charter for the Climate Action Joint Council CSEC subcommittee, which is on page 13 of the agenda packet, the charter itself. So also in tonight's agenda packet are two resolutions. The resolution on page 14 is the June 1st endorsed climate emergency resolution that now includes the recommended language establishing the ad hoc charter drafting subcommittee. The resolution on page 12 approves the charter of the new Climate Action Joint Council CSEC subcommittee. Staff is recommending adoption of both resolutions. If the council adopts the charter of the Climate Action Joint Council subcommittee, staff is requesting that the council make its appointments for the two councilors. At the next CSEC meeting, staff will request the CSEC to appoint its two members. This includes the staff report, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Questions for Travis from council?
I have a quick question.
Great. Go ahead, Councilman.
What is the anticipated time commitment for the joint CSEC council subcommittee?
Right now, the proposal is to meet up to four times per year. And in the charter itself is the suggested month. So it could be 1 to 4 unless the city council requests otherwise. But there will be a fair amount of certainly upfront work to help draft the climate action plan to meet those goals. So it certainly would be more upfront work.
And
but
how,
sorry, I was going to say there has been materials presented and drafted to help formulate that climate action plan.
and how would the climate action plan be different than the climate action plan that was adopted by the city council in, I think it was 2016?
Well, those are really measures of what to achieve. This would go into much more detail about options and specifics of accomplishing them. So if you looked at, for example, is something I'm going to maybe talking about in the future, EV charging stations, all the various aspects to actually achieve those instead of sort of the measures and goals.
Mm-hmm. So let's say EV charging stations, what would be, if that was the project, what is an example of what the subcommittee would do?
That's well, that would be to help formulate specific steps to achieve, for example, I'll back up is to establish an overall goal that's specific and then help identify the specific steps, obviously with staff involvement and suggestions of how do we get there.
Mm-hmm. So in that example, it'd be like, we're going to have 3 EV charging stations, and then you would go and do the research about everything that needed to be done to make that happen, or?
That would be in part, but it would also be looking at how much is it going to cost? What are the options? Do we do the lower level or the fast charger? Where can we place them? And much more specific. So it's focusing more on the actual implementation and achievement.
Okay, and just so I understand, aside from EV charging stations, what's something else that's like a practical thing that would be something they would work
Well, some of these are adopted in the work plan, but it's really because it's going to be, it's going to be a huge challenge to get the net zero emissions by 2030. So it's looking at not just electrifying houses, but transportation and looking at clean energy, waste reduction, and looking at all these action items that have been developed in part for the city, but also for the Regional Climate Protection Authority. And
Okay.
I would say part of it is to help. There's always barriers, so it's always helping to identify and overcome barriers that the city council may need to address. If there's some ordinance that says you can't do this, does it make sense to address that?
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks.
Can I add one thing? Travis, is it fair to say part of what you're going to be doing as staff to the commission and to this joint subcommittee is, as you're putting pieces together, they would go to the commission kind of first, and then they'd be coming to the commission and the council kind of for a feedback, and then if things need to be looped back to the commission, they go back to the commission. Is that kind of, or do you see some things may even come to the council? It may go both ways. Some things could come to the subcommittee, the joint subcommittee first, and then go to the commission. Part of it, I think, will be, how clear these things are and how straightforward. And if we think there's broader, maybe policy questions that the council really may need to weigh, want to kind of give some signals early to the CSCC. I think that's it's part of the role of the joint committee is kind of creating some of that alignment and help.
I guess I'm just wondering, because I was on the CSCC when the Riverwatch lawsuit was filed, and then the council wasn't going to go forward with the 2020 measures, and then we looked at them at the CSCC and then said we could do them anyway, even if it doesn't, take any boxes at the county level. But my recollection is that the recommendations were a menu of specific items you could do, like switching over to Sonoma Evergreen, and it was specific actionable items that, you just picked the ones you wanted, and then you could figure out if you did those things, what the effects would be. So I'm just want to make sure that since we have a whole authority dedicated to doing this work, that we're not also doing double work.
Well, that's a great example, but the challenge is how to do that. And that's what staff will be working on, trying to find options that make the most sense to achieve that, and then working with the Joint Commission to prioritize and see what makes sense within the city.
I think it's also fair to say that, again, those climate action measures that were put in place at that time, Councilmember Harrington, part of this is kind of to do kind of an update and create an updated plan going forward that the council would approve. Some of those items maybe have been done. Some of those items maybe not create enough, maybe not kind of what their actual impact may be, fairly minimal, versus some other ideas that are now on your environmental plan that could be woven in. So I think that's part of it. It's part of it. This is also kind of doing a refresh so that there is an overall climate action plan. And if there's definitely some good models out there that I know Travis has looked at from other agencies as well.
Great. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you.
Other questions from other members of council?
No, I'm good.
Okay, all right. Go ahead and open it up for public comment. Seeing no one rise, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the council for comments. Who'd like to make a comment?
I have a comment.
All right, Vice Mayor Hundley, go ahead.
I'm excited to see this coming forward. Back when we considered the climate action resolution, we had the staff draft and then also the student group submission. And one of the things that they had in their resolution was to have this committee to ensure that there was a body that was going to be working on this these sorts of items throughout the year, which, to continually keep pushing ahead on these goals, I think it's important for there to be dedicated people for it. And I don't know when the last time we created a standing committee is, so I think that this is a perfectly appropriate time to have one. Back when we were selecting the items for Climate Action 2020, I remember it was, we kind of had these long lists and we were sort of picking the things that we thought were feasible in Sonoma, but they weren't selected based on impact. And there's a lot of things related to like new construction improvements and that sort of thing, which are all great things. But here in front of us, we have lots of things we could do in town, like more electric vehicle charging stations that would just make a practical impact on it. So I'm excited to be supporting this tonight, and I'd be interested to hear who would be interested from the council serving on it.
Well, this is Madeline, and I am encouraged as well. And I know that one of the important things, and I don't know what we refer to it as, but our new construction with EV, I forget the terminology, hookup for homes, new homes. I think that's a huge accomplishment for the city of Sonoma. And there are other things within the findings of the work that's been done. And I'm just really, I'm really excited to move forward because I think this is probably one of the things that could save the planet.
Yeah, I'm extremely encouraged that we're doing this. I've attended some of the meetings that they've done in Santa Rosa. They have a standing committee there. So excited to get one started here. And, I think Sonoma kind of led the county at the beginning of this by, hooking up to Evergreen and 100% renewable fuels and changing our lights to LEDs and the rest of it. But I think there's ways where other cities have started to kind of move ahead. And it's great to be in this place where we can draw on so much information from around the county to really kind of bolster what we're doing here. And there's a lot of exciting technology that's kind of right on the cusp or coming online that we can start to take advantage of to really kind of trim back the amount of greenhouse gas that we produce. This is an extremely important thing. I'd love to serve on the subcommittee if council would have me. I think I can bring an interesting perspective, especially with regards to waste reduction and composting, just kind of with my expertise working with Recology Sonoma Marin. And I'm also on the Regional Climate Protection Authority, but if there's other members of council that would rather be, that would be totally fine with me as well. Councilmember Harrington, did you have comments?
Oh, I mean, I think it's important work. I just, creating a standing committee, I think, is a serious endeavor. So I want to make sure that there are tangible results that are going to be produced from that staff time that are different than what's available through the county. But I think it is meaningful, and obviously we've talked about it a lot of times, but the fact that we don't even have an EV charging station really anymore is a huge problem, and doesn't make too much sense. I mean, I understand it economically, but it also just like, it's one of those things that just has to get done. So I think it's good. Thank you, Rachel and Madeline, for working on it. And also Travis.
So Mayor Harvey, the motion would be there's two resolutions to approve and look in our city attorney, but I assume you'll want them to both to be done separately. The first is to create and approve the charter for the new climate action subcommittee. And then the second, and then make appointments to that. And then the last is to approve the climate emergency resolution.
Great. Okay. So we have a first motion, and I'm totally fine with the current subcommittee as it stands to stay if they'd like to continue, but if there's a member that would be comfortable with that switch, then that's fine too.
No, I can drop.
Okay.
I mean, I think you're very close to this issue. And I think that's, those connections, of course, with your employment really makes it important, I think, to tie in. And I think that it's really great. So I'm willing to step down for a price.
Which you'll extract at a later date, I'm sure.
Yes. But I'd like to move to approve resolution of this. Is that okay? Move to approve resolution of the City of Sonoma to create and approve a charter for new climate action joint council CSEC subcommittee.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Agrimonti,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hundley,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 401.
So motion to approve Resolution endorsing the declaration of a climate emergency, immediate actions to restore a safe climate. Is that the right one?
You did good. You got it.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. I keep forgetting that I have to say that. Just do it. We know what's coming next.
Positive reinforcement. Thank you. Aye.
Vice Mayor Hundley,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 401.
Great. All right. On item 6.2,
Wait,
consideration.
sorry, Mayor Harvey, I just want clarity. Is the council appointing to the ad hoc? It would be good if you took formal action for the standing committee. So I heard Councilmember Agrimonti step off. I heard you have interest. Council needs to formally appoint.
So motion to appoint myself and Vice Mayor Hundley to the council, what was it called? The climate, the standing climate committee or the standing climate emergency committee. I shouldn't be on something that I can't even say the name of, I guess, but here we are.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Agrimonti,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hundley,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 401.
All right. On to item 6.2, consideration, discussion, and possible action to review and update the city's safe parking program with Sonoma overnight support by the following actions. City Manager Kathy Capriolo.
All right, thank you, Mayor Harvey. If I could ask our city clerk to brief Kathy King. And so just a little bit of background, council. As you know, in November of last year, you approved what we informally call Safe Parking 2.0. This is 10 parking spaces in the police parking lot that operates from 10 p.m. to 9 a.m. There's a memorandum of understanding between the city and SOS, Sonoma Overnight Support, that provides those services. And folks stay in the, sleep there overnight. They're, again, before the pandemic, there were day services and food that were offered. SOS has a security guard also, and that they paid for initially and we are paying for this year. And so then we did have, in February of last year, we had an arrest of a client that was not a safe parking client, but it was a client of SOS, which raised concerns. There was a variety of conversations that occurred in the community, and we took the safe parking subcommittee and we expanded that group to include council members Agrimonti and Cook, some city staff, including the police chief, SOS staff, and representatives from the Field of Dreams, Sonoma Valley, girls softball, and Sonoma High School baseball program. So the group met twice, reviewed a variety of things, and there are 3 actions coming out of that subcommittee coming back to you. The first is a resolution that will update and amend the safe parking program MOU and update the rules. So there are a variety of changes. One is there's some changes to you kind of for folks that, clients that may have animals. There's a clear protocol for communication between SOS and police when a client's exited from the program. It's also changed hours. So on Saturday mornings, the program ends a little earlier so that the parking lot can be empty for what was going to be girls softball on Saturdays. And also a few other clarifying things, including vehicles not being operated. Vehicles need to be operable, which is already in, but not being able to be fixed and repaired in the lot. So those were agreements in the entire group. The other recommendation was to restrict overnight parking at the depot parking lot. This has been an issue on occasion of folks maybe that are not registered within the safe parking program, but parking at depot. I know as council, we had a conversation about this last time, and the council was not interested at that point in putting forward any no overnight restrictions in depot. I will tell you, I think that again, the committee thought it was a good thing to put in place in case there's a problem. For the ad hoc person that park there, maybe they've been to an event, had too much to drink, want to just walk home, that it wouldn't necessarily, we're not going to be the police department would not be ticketing, but for someone who's maybe starting to use the lot as an overnight camping, not enrolled within the program, then there would be an ability to have conversations there. And then the last one that was the last item is an ordinance change that's in front of you, and this will be a first reading. And as you know, we are in the unique position in Sonoma where we can drink alcohol in our parks. The Field of Dreams, because it is primarily a youth serving facility and an overall adult serving, the Field of Dreams folks wanted, they were the ones who asked to change the regulations to have it not be lawful to drink in the park, because on occasion there are folks that are drinking in the park and causing problems when there's other youth activities. If there's a special event, whether it's a baseball event with adults or whether there is a music event like used to occur out there on occasion, then there would be the ability for either the city or Field of Dreams to create a special permit and create those options. And we would do that by administrative regulations. So those are the pieces that are in front of you for action tonight. Again, just as a reminder, in this year's budget, the council put about $35,000 into additional funding support for the homeless services program. Some of that is going to fund the security firm and to reimburse to cover costs for any towing of vehicles that has to occur. And then there's also a variety of support for kind of pandemic related costs.
So Kathy, could I interject? Kathy King would like Elena Aliotto included. So I guess she's been trying to get in.
Okay. Thank you, Madeline. Thank you. And Rebecca, if you could pull Elena Aliotto is their case manager for SOS. In addition, the city through the Prior Redevelopment Agency provides $30,000 a year. I just want to take a brief minute to thank the team that was involved in this. So Madeline Agrimonti and David Cook are our council reps. Police representatives were Chief Rodriguez and Steve Lucchetti. From SOS, Kathy King, the executive director, Judith Walsh, from their board members, and Dan Kahn, also staff, but also representing someone who was previously homeless. And then Field of Dreams, there was Marty Herrick, Ross Montgomery, Joe Kaiser, and Richard Gertzen, and John Kersey from the Sonoma Valley Girls Softball, and Rich Blanchard from Sonoma High Baseball Program. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I did think that maybe before questions, I did ask Kathy maybe if she wanted to give just a brief update in terms of kind of numbers and status of the program. Again, as you know, some of their operation has shifted because of the size of the Haven with the pandemic does not allow the services really to be offered from that facility. But I'll let Kathy go through the updates on those items with you. So with that, I'd like to, if it's all right, pleasure the council turn to Kathy King to have her as our partner provide you an update.
So I think she's not in.
Oh, okay. Well, looks like she's in.
I could be wrong. Oh, okay.
Kathy, if you want to unmute and provide an update to the council.
Am I in? Am I just not in? You're not seeing me?
You're in. We're not seeing
I'm
you.
not
We
all
can hear
dressed
you.
up. Okay,
We'd love to see you if you want to put your video
Okay.
on.
I'm in. Now I see you.
All
Hi.
right,
That's
great.
Good evening, Mayor Harvey. Good evening, City Council people. Thank you for this opportunity. I want to give a little update. And the reason I asked Elena Aliotto to be in on this because she's the case manager that was vetting everyone and screening everyone and has done that for the past year. And she can speak to any questions you might have specifically. But just to give you a little background, safe parking, the numbers in August were 16 people self-identified as living in their car. In September, 17. And just got the October numbers, they're 20. We currently have 7 people living in their cars in front of the Haven that have been vetted and cleared. 2 of them are fire victims. And we had someone else today that came and signed up. All of our case management is being done at the Springs Hall. And they're filling out their paperwork. And then Elena will vet them to see if they're good candidates for being into the parking lot. So that is that. And then the what Kathy was saying, the security people go 3 times a night at different times, just so people don't get lulled into knowing when they're there. And then I send that report to Police Chief Orlando and to our Deputy Steve Lucchetti once a week. And if we have any problems with anyone in the parking lot, then we directly contact them and we work together on that. And Elena, there has been no problems for parking clients in the past, I would say since the beginning of the year, since we instituted it. Elena, do you want to say something?
I would just like to add that for all the overnight programs that Sonoma Overnight Support has provided, the safe parking has been the most seamless. There's been the most cooperation among the people there. We had one glitch that was way back in springtime, early spring. It might have even been the beginning of the year. And once we got, excuse the expression, rid of that person, then everything went back to running very smoothly. And I just wanted to add that because we've had different programs, Winter Shelter, we've had the Haven being a shelter, and those have brought all kinds of challenges. But safe parking has really run by a very good pace and response, I feel.
I'd be glad to take any questions if you do have them.
Yeah, do we have questions?
I'm sorry. There's seven cars, but there's a couple of couples in the cars, so there's 9 people. And there sometimes people try to park their oversized vehicles or their trailers, and we don't allow that. And then sometimes there's cars that don't that are inoperable that people are in, and we've had cars towed. And so we've been on top of it. There's also a staff person that checks every morning. The staff person checks at 11, and then the monitor for the laundry and the showers also checks. And then we make sure that the area is clean. We have a porta potty. The money the city's giving us directly is for the safe parking patrol. That's $12,000. And then for the staffing, and the rest, it comes out of the city budget. So that's where we're at with them. And I'd be glad to take any questions.
Questions for Kathy King?
I have a question. This is Rachel. So the changes that we are looking at tonight with the MOU and parking restrictions for depot, and then starting this amendment of our ordinance about consuming alcohol in Field of Dreams except for permitted events. Are these changes that are actually helping you all do what you're doing, or neutral, or are they making it harder, or would they make it harder?
I don't think that, the no drinking, it's really not the people in the cars that are drinking, frankly. There's crowds of people on the lawn drinking, and I think that's the objections for the people that have the, playing softball or doing the practices. And the hours are a little difficult, having people come in late at night, but people are used to that. And the others, Depot Park, but really it wasn't any of our people that were parking in the Depot Park. It was people that might have been intoxicated in the city and parking there. So there's always been enough space. We also do not park, the cars park in the middle. They don't park in front of the dog park. We've had no complaints from the dog park. That's huge. And also they don't park along the lawn area. They park in the middle and they park in front of the Haven. So that's there. I would say, it's not neutral. It helps. We also set up a no trespassing sign to help, to make sure that people don't hang out there. And that's been helpful. So I don't say they're neutral. I think they add to the MOU, and we're willing to agree to those changes. Yes.
So Kathy Capriola, may I ask a question with respect to drinking? So what the parents of Field and Dreams, I know when we used to go to the games and stuff, people would drink beer in it. Well, beer, I guess. So how does that apply to the parents that are there?
It would apply to parents as well. And my understanding from Field of Dreams is that they tell coaches don't allow it. They tell parents don't allow it, and they have enforced that.
Thank you.
So Yeah, and maybe just one other comment I would say, because it was myself and kind of Erica Jacobs facilitating the two meetings of the group. I think it was really good to bring everyone together, have people learn about each other, their interests, what their needs are, how the operations worked, and then the recommendations again in front of you were agreed to by all the parties.
I have another question. The start time, 10 p.m. That was the existing program. Why do we have that so late?
Because the Field of Dreams wanted everybody out of the park. They didn't want anybody in the parking lot if they still had games, even though it's dark. And then because of any events that were happening at your, what do you call it now? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's City Hall. This was more of because of meetings in the council chambers. So city council meetings, CSCC meetings, planning commission meetings, design review, other meetings that happen. So the issue was a lot of times those meetings are not finishing till 10. And for members of the public that are attending those public meetings, we wanted to make sure that there was, parking room available. So it was less about Field of Dreams. It was more about kind of the public use and citizens coming to participate in public meetings.
Well, I would certainly support an earlier start time. I think the practical one would be more helpful.
Yeah, and our meetings start at 6, and normally we start a little. We're I think later we're maybe having a discussion about moving it a bit earlier. So to me, it's kind of like, if you're going to show up for a meeting at 6, you're probably going to get there at 6. And so if people are arriving for this program at 9, then I guess you were showing up for a later agenda item, but then there's street parking and the rest of it. And how many parking spaces have we permitted, max?
10.
10? Yeah, it's negligible.
So council, really this really is kind of how you want to use that space for public access and meetings. I think going to 9 o'clock probably is okay. I wouldn't go any earlier because you do have people that will come they're watching meetings and they're driving, coming down. Again, once we're back to normal, which hopefully we will be in 21.
Well, I just also think about people sleeping in their cars, getting
I appreciate.
Yeah.
Yep, I appreciate
People
that.
with kids and stuff like that are sleeping in their cars too.
Right. And a lot of people have animals. People that live in the cars, they're choosing not to go into shelters during the winter, and they're choosing to be in the car with their pets or with their significant others, and they don't want to be separated. So they're a different type of homeless person that take care of one another and help one another, but they are not your mainstream homeless, chronically homeless. They're in their cars. A lot of them have part-time jobs, or one of the couples has a part-time job. So these are people trying to get out of being homeless, and we're still providing services out of the Springs Hall to try and help those people with case management from the not only Elena helping them, but the health center has a case manager there every day. So we're working with them. It's hard. Don't get me wrong. It's not easy to help people find a place, but we're trying.
What time do similar programs start in other places? Do we know?
I don't know. As you council knows, these programs really didn't exist before we restarted this program in the county. And I think there may be some programs that now have started. I don't know the timing.
Okay. Other questions for Kathy King?
Yeah, I do have questions. Kathy,
Great.
I have the new budget. I have to assume that everyone got the new budget for the Haven. Could you go down the list of what you pay for and how it's paid? The safe parking, towing, $1,000. That's just a pool of money in case you need money for towing.
Right. Yeah. No. Well, that's what the city put in for towing. And then go ahead. The 12,000 is for the safety patrol company that we pay $1,000 a month, and the 16,000 is for the staff person who monitors.
So safe parking is the Haven. You pay for that?
No, the city's we pay for it. The city will reimburse us 12,000,
Okay.
1,000 a month.
All right, thank you. The next.
I have the list in front of me if you want, Madeline. I'd be happy to walk through it. So there are the next, because I'm not sure Kathy has it in front of her. The next one is the clothes washing program. So this is 16,800, where SOS pays a staff member to help coordinate and be there. So folks can come in, wash their clothes one at a time, and then leave. And so that's a staff person who oversees that program. We've tried a whole variety of ways, as Kathy knows, to do the clothes washing, and this has been a very successful way to make sure that folks can stay clean after looking at some different options. Then we're paying about $2,800 for hand washing stations,
Well,
and
who
also
pays
about
the 16,800?
we're doing it as a reimbursement because it's a staff position to SOS. So
Okay.
Kathy turns in invoices and then we pay. And then the city is paying directly for about just shy of $3,000 for hand washing stations and about $3,000 for portable restroom facilities. So some of these are related. There's about 13,000 that's related to the safe parking program out of the 35,000, and the rest of it is related to really kind of pandemic related support costs.
Okay, thank you so much. I just, for the benefit of the city council and the public, it would be nice for us to know. And this is the new budget. Unfortunately, I was referring to the old one, and I'm sorry. And Kathy, our city manager, straightened me out. Thank you so much. So I'm finished.
Thanks, Madeline. All right. Any other questions for Kathy King? No? All right, we'll go ahead.
So we're willing to come back in 6 months and report back in, and that's the original agreement. So this is, we were going to come back 6 months after we started, but because of the pandemic, we didn't. So this is our 6 month report in, and then we can report in 6 months. I think that'll be April, and we'll be glad to do that, at that time.
Fantastic. Great. So we'll go ahead and open this up for public comment and bring it back to council. So we'll open up for public comment. I'm seeing no one rise. And we'll go ahead and bring it back to council. All right. Comments from council.
I have a couple comments on the moving forward with prohibiting consuming alcohol on that field. I support that. I'm glad it's applies to everyone generally. If this was something where a lot of permits were being issued, then I think I would start to have a problem with it. But if it, it makes sense that area is used for, well, in normal times for random things where it might be useful, but since it is a field that is used for youth activities, that might as well, and if it could help prevent some, issues there, then I support that. And the only thing that I think that I'd like to consider changing is just the start time, and if we could move it up to 9 p.m. I mean, personally, I try to go to bed at 10 p.m. and it's really important to get good sleep, and hard to get enough good sleep anyway when you're in less than ideal circumstances. So I'd prefer it be earlier, but I'd be willing to step it backwards and just kind of see what fits the best.
Other comments from council?
I think that would be much appreciated among our clientele. And if my memory serves me right, when we did that initial 3-month safe parking program, which at the time never really took off for various reasons, I'm almost sure it was a 9 o'clock start time. So I just want to second that opinion and say I think it's a really good idea.
Okay, I'll go if nobody else has comments. I would also support a 9 o'clock start time. I think it is important for people to be able to get there and get settled. And if an hour helps, I don't foresee major problems coming as a result of going an hour earlier at all. I think it's a good idea that we're blocking that. We're stopping alcohol drinking on the Field of Dreams. I think a lot of kind of just general citizenry and kind of tomfoolery going on out there has led to some blame in SOS's direction. I think that having a tool where those people can be removed is good. And maybe they'll go do that somewhere else. And I think that that's quite good. I think that Kathy, you've done a good job, and the organization has done a good job over the last few months since we had the large town meeting of really keeping that place really tight and clean and safe, both for the general public and also for the members of the safe parking program. And I think the security will help both, right? Because we know that, people that are unhoused are also at severe risk of harassment and the rest of that when they're sleeping in those kinds of situations. So I think that that's helpful in that way as well. And very glad that we were able to get the washing machine and the showers over at the Vets Hall and the rest of it. That was critical at the early months of COVID. So I thank the city manager for her work there to get that done. I'm supportive of this. I think we should go an hour earlier and would take comments from the rest of the council, or we could go for a motion. Up to you guys.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Amy.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that starting earlier in the context of not meeting in person and also the field being used a lot less is fine. It makes sense. It's kind of a different world now in terms of compatibility of uses. I think it's good that we check in every 6 months about how it's going. And I think as other uses resume, Kathy, I have to say I was devastated to hear you just slip in 2021 so casually, thinking how long this is going to go on. But yes, how long it goes on. So anyway, I think it's good that it came back for review, and also the not drinking out there is a good idea as well. So
Yeah, I agree.
good.
I think, and could I ask in this resolution, what was the other thing? Oh, coming back in 6 months, is that necessary, or it's just an administrative thing?
I support it. I think it's good to check in and kind of just see how everything's working. There's a lot of moving parts going on here, and so I support it. And it's kind of nice to just bring the issue back up of homelessness and remind people in general that there are people sleeping in their cars in our town. And I think that kind of stuff it's good. So if it's not too cumbersome, and I think it's useful, and it's good to see Kathy and acknowledge the good work that she's doing. And so, yeah, I'm supportive.
Mayor Harvey, I would suggest, because the council, and you have the ability, the way your agenda is written, to appoint an ad hoc committee who might be, if you're going to do this for 6 months and 6 months for the next year, for 2021, to appoint an ad hoc that would work with staff. So the way this was envisioned was that Kathy would be having conversations directly with Field of Dreams and those folks. They talk with city staff on occasion, and again, there's been no issues. Everything's been going really smoothly, and kudos to Kathy and her team for the hard work that's occurring there, and really also a tight partnership with Chief Rodriguez and Deputy Sheriff Lucchetti. So the other piece I would say, though, is if we had an ad hoc, then what we would do is we would meet staff and with the police chief and Kathy, we would meet with that ad hoc before the meeting, just review if there's anything. And that also, I think, we did that just this last week to do a touch point. And I think that could be a good step too. And that's really what the MOU says would occur with these 6 months check-in. So council would need to appoint an ad hoc if you want to move that direction. Or staff could meet and we could just bring it. So it's really the pleasure of the council.
So I would volunteer for that.
Great. I would support you on that ad hoc as well. Is there any other member of council?
But I'm going to be drinking after 9. I'm sorry.
Is not on the field. James. I would be happy to be on this subcommittee too.
Okay, good. And I like the word tomfoolery.
Yeah.
That was good.
Got that one in there.
That was really apropos.
Thanks. All right, great. So do we have a motion on this?
Can we just do a motion to approve staff's recommendations and do all of them together, or do we need to do them individually?
We are amending the resolution to go to 9 p.m., right?
I think they should be done individually. One includes an introduction of an ordinance, for example.
Jeff, you always want to go individually.
All right. So I guess the first one would be I'd like to make a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an updated memorandum of understanding with Sonoma Overnight Support that would add rules and clarifications to the safe parking program and the police department parking lot as amended by our discussions tonight.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Councilmember Agrimonti,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hundley,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 401.
And then I'll make a motion to approve a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sonoma establishing parking restrictions in the Depot Park public parking lot.
Second. Okay, I'll second it.
Thank you.
The new trend going on. Nobody wants to second it anymore. Go ahead, roll call vote.
Councilmember Agrimonti,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hundley,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 401.
Finally, I'd like to make a motion to have a first reading of an ordinance amending the Sonoma Municipal Code in section 9.36.020 to add language making it unlawful to consume alcoholic beverages at the Field of Dreams Park.
This constitutes an introduction of that ordinance.
I would like to introduce.
Second. Roll call vote.
Councilmember
Okay.
back. Councilmember Agrimonti,
Aye.
Vice Mayor.
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes, indeed.
The motion carries 401.
And then, I'm sorry, Mayor Harvey, and then I believe, Jeff, what I heard was kind of consensus from council, and I'm looking for consensus or not. We need to take a vote to appoint Vice Mayor Hundley and Councilmember Agrimonti to the ad hoc subcommittee. I'm hearing
Madeline,
consensus.
do you want to nod?
Oh, move to approve or say yes.
That constitutes a nod. That's legally a nod.
Oh, I'm a shenanigan. What was that other one?
Tomfoolery? You're a tomfooler?
Yeah, I'm a tomfooler.
There's one guy, Tom. Madeline's always fooling him.
All right.
All right, great. Wonderful. Moving on. Item 6.3, consideration, discussion, and possible action regarding implementing a council policy that no new city council business be considered after an established time and discussion about an earlier start time. Kathy Cabriola and Rebecca Barr.
Great, council, as you're aware, at our quarterly agenda, this request was brought up by Councilmember Harrington to look at potentially creating a threshold time when no new items would be considered or council would consider if you want to consider any new items on your agenda. So this is a standard practice that many cities do. I want to thank our clerk who did put something out, and it looks like almost 43 cities responded to a question she had that they do have an end time, but it can be passed, kind of bypassed by 4/5 vote of the council. You can decide how you want to do. So that's one of the questions. Do you want majority or do you want a supermajority to determine if you are going to go longer than whatever X time? And during the conversation of the quarterly, you also talked about whether you wanted to maybe have an earlier start time. Again, the world of Zoom making things a little different, and don't know whether this would be something during the pandemic or once everyone is potentially going back to work and that type of thing in a different way, whether you'd want to change it. But at this point, one other thing I would say is we've aligned all the commissions now to start at 6, similar to the council, because there was always a confusion about what was starting at 5 or 5:30 or 5:30 or 6. And so over the last year or so, we've just aligned them all. Not that it matters, but I throw that out to you as well. Anything else, City Clerk Barr, to add?
Nope, I think you covered it.
Okay. So I would turn it to the council for you to have a conversation.
I'd turn it over to Councilmember Harrington in case she wants to make a comment about this.
I guess I would just say that I think one of the thoughts I had was, what if you were, I'm an attorney, so what if you were in court, but then it was 10:30 at night and the judge had to consider all of your legal arguments and then make a decision that affected your life? It would be not great, because that is not when people are their freshest. So I think given the seriousness of the things that we discuss, they deserve people that are fresh-minded, and I think some members of the council maybe better at that than I am, but after I get up at 6 in the morning and go all the way through, by about 9:30, I am pretty mentally taxed, and it is really hard for me to consider something novel, in depth, and make decisions about it. So I would like to at least have a check-in so that we know that whatever is in front of us is getting all of our full attention and full consideration. And that was my reason for bringing it up. And also Kathy told me that was a standard rule in many other cities. So those are my two reasons. But I think they make a lot of sense. And in terms of an earlier start time, I would, it's up to the city staff probably about what, if it would be hard to change it. But I think that many people can participate in the meeting from work if they're still there, or from home more easily now through Zoom by having the meeting on. So I think we used to start at 6 so that people had a chance to get home from work and then come down to the meeting. So I think we could do that, but the later it is at night, the less mental focus I personally have.
So just one other thought, if I could add in, maybe something to you consider, and before you ask questions, talk about. The one other thing is, the meetings have been at 6 o'clock for a long time. So if there is a change, one concern I would have is people coming thinking they're going to speak a general public comment, and it's 5:30 and you've gone through public comment, they're arriving at 6. So I do think that even if you change it, maybe for hopefully the next 6-9 months, the pandemic lasts, and then you revert back, I think that you've got to be ready to kind of stay with this for some period of time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it will be confusing if you switch back. And I do, because we do public comment at the beginning of the meeting, I think you could have some outfall on that. So I just want to bring that up as part of a consideration for you to chew on.
But we could remedy that by, having this change at a certain date, several months in the future, and we could be advertising that on this date it's going to be changing, and people would understand. And then, we could even, if we really wanted to remedy that, we could add a public comment, or we could do public comment after the what do you call it, consent calendar, or we could add a public comment at the end that's scheduled for, a few meetings.
We used to have 2 public comments, but we got rid of the other one in maybe 2015.
Yeah. So we can bring that back for a short period of time. I think, long term, I wouldn't want to have 2 public comments forever, but for a short period of time, just to, we want the public to understand. And a lot of people are newcomers to the meeting, and they'll just talk to their friend like, oh, what's it start? 6 o'clock, and they'll go. So I just think I think that's a good point, Kathy. City Manager Capriola. Great.
And
So
then, in terms of the decision point about super majority versus majority, I mean, I'm comfortable with majority myself.
Yeah, me too. I think if it's a check-in, it should be a simple majority for sure. That feels more like a check-in than filibuster proof majority. All right. Other thoughts, comments here?
We'll have comments, but are we going to do public comment?
Okay. Cool. We'll switch to that. So we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. If David's store rises, looks like a no. We'll go ahead and bring it back to the City Council and comments.
So I like the idea of having this check-in at the end. I think it'd be good, and I think it would also perhaps motivate everybody to be more efficient with our meeting time. I don't support starting the meeting earlier. I mean, we do sometimes do the closed sessions, but I work till 6 on most days, and whether it's people in the public or people who are going to be future city council members, I think that the closer you get to normal standard working hours, the harder it is. I mean, I think it's hard enough even now to have a normal job and be on the city council. So I think that we have to stay out of the traditional workday, even though a lot of people don't even work those hours. But it would be difficult for me to start that early, regularly.
That's a fair point. Other members of council want to make a comment? Great. I mean, so for me, I'm very supportive of this. I think it's a good idea to have a check-in. We got to talk about time because it kind of leaves it blank. I mean, when would we want to check in? 9:30, 10 o'clock?
I think I would pick 9 because I think 3 hours is like a solid chunk of doing very productive things. And like I've noticed over the years, after 9, things start to decline. After 10, it's just very difficult.
Yeah. But we do
Also-
have to recognize as a council that if we're going to do this, we're paring down the size of the meeting. So we kind of have to adjust our thinking about what's going to happen, or at least, calm down our comments or whatever it is to try to make sure it's going at a quicker speed. The negative I feel about this is I've been on some boards where there's important discussion going on. I'm not saying council would do this, but people are so interested in getting out of the meeting that important discussion is kind of quelled and stopped. And I think that is a negative outcome of this. Could be a potential one, but it's just up to the council to not do that.
Well, the idea I had, and I don't, was that we won't bring up a new item after 9 without a vote. So if we're having a robust discussion at 8:45 and it goes till 9:30, it's just that we're not going to move on to the next item without deciding. So I wasn't thinking that the meeting is over. It's just no new items after 9. I also like the idea.
I agree with you, unless, of course, then I guess we have to be cognizant of parts of the agenda that are time sensitive, that we shouldn't leave them to the end of the.
Yeah.
So would this be like a 9 o'clock, don't start any new items until, so it would be just that, or would there also be like then another one that was like, we're not going to go past 10 unless everyone says we can go past 10?
I hadn't thought of that one. I just sort of thought like if you're on an item, you would close it out but I know for obviously for public hearings, we all know that we've continued those when they've gotten really late. What's the rule on that, Jeff?
There really isn't a rule specifically in terms of continuing a public hearing. A general statement. There are some land use rules that might affect it. For example, SB 330 imposes a 5-meeting cap on land use matters. In a continued meeting, you add to that 5. You don't add to that 5. It's part of the total 5 that you can have. So if you're the last, or if the 5th meeting on a controversial land use matter, you could not continue it to a 6th meeting.
Oh.
So there are
counts into that 5.
Yeah. Yes.
A continued meeting is its own separate meeting for the purposes of counting meetings.
Because otherwise you could just filibuster it and just like keep moving the item and just talk forever and ever and ever. That'd be awesome.
Why is everything filibustered now?
So there are some instances where continuance becomes problematic. But generally speaking, it's not a problem.
Everybody loves reading Dr. Seuss books.
It seems to me though that if you have a rule that you're going to check in at 9:30 or 9 o'clock before you go into another item, when you make that motion, assuming you do, to allow you to move into another item after 9 o'clock, you could limit it just to the items that you would want to address, thereby restricting the ultimate time by which you would conclude the meeting. So if there are 5 items that are still on the agenda at 9 o'clock, you can move to agree to just address one of them, for example. And that would assist keeping the total amount of the meeting to an acceptable limitation.
That makes sense, because you wouldn't want to like at the end of each new item that you brought up re-vote to continue, right? So you would want to say we're gonna continue to push through for items 6.4 and 6.5, but we're not going to do 6 and 6.6 and 7.
Correct.
Right.
Could we adjust could we choose, would we be allowed, like, let's say there's a 6.4, 6.5, 6.6, and 6.7. Could we go, we're going to do 6.5 and 6.7 and drop 2 items that were kind of not in chronological order?
Yes, as long as they were not time sensitive.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
I'm
and I
supportive. I think this is a good idea.
I do think what you'd want to do is, again, you may have members of the public that are there for items, and you have
Time sensitive.
clock and you're starting a new item, you'd want to be looking at the agenda, kind of getting a sense, do you think you can move them all through basically in the next hour? Or if there's certain things that you're going to defer, and you'd be making that question then, so that folks who are in attendance could be leaving.
Yeah, and it'll be up to the city manager and the mayor to kind of, or all members of council, but just kind of generally who runs the meeting. But to say that at the beginning too, it's a very packed agenda. There may be some items that get left off because remember we do have the cutoff at 9:30 where we're going to just, just like prefacing that at the beginning is always good. And then there should be a check-in around like 8. Like, are we going to get through the rest of it? Or like just that you should mention it probably. That makes sense.
So what's on the table today? I mean, these are just ideas because I'm fine with like if it was going to be no new items after 9 unless we talk about it, then I think that'd be a great start. I think that would make a big difference. And then if at some other point we're like decided we don't want to go past 10 unless we have a majority supporting going past 10, but we might not even need that. So
I think if you
9:30 is that the suggestion?
I like 9.
I like 9.
New
I think
items,
if you're
no
going-
new items.
No new items. I think if you do 9 o'clock, then that lets you really, what you're doing is you're managing your agenda, right? And you're doing a pulse check at 9. I wouldn't wait till 9:30. So I think 9 o'clock. And really, if you're looking at your staff report, if you just took the second sentence of the italics where it says no new items will begin after 9, this would be the blank. The majority of members present vote to allow the items to be heard. We could just put that on your agenda. So we would put it as the notes section on the agenda. At some point, Rebecca's working on, city clerk is working on a kind of council protocol manual to put a lot of these policies that have been done over time and resolutions in a manual. But for this point, I think we could just put it straight on the agenda.
Great.
Sounds good to me.
So
Let's
do you want
move it.
to take a motion on that? What I
Do
just
we have the
read?
public comment? Did we public comment this?
We did,
Okay.
I thought.
Wait. Yeah.
We did, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
made this give it for
Okay.
just
So moved.
Second.
roll call vote.
Councilmember Agrimonti,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hundley,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Wonderbar. On to item 6.4. Discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding a call day and treasure artist selections for 2021. Kathy?
And City Clerk Rebecca Barr will take this.
Yes, good evening. Here we are again. Time of year, typically we're putting out nominations for both the treasure artist and the holiday honors. And this year we are still in COVID, and so it is a different year for us. Earlier this year we were able to have exceptions before the pandemic that honored our current and Kimberly Blattner, the Alcalde and Betty Reno is the treasure artist. As I said, right now is the time when we would be sending out solicitations for nominations. And due to COVID being that, things are different. So we're really coming to the council for direction on how they would like to proceed. If you would like us, we're beginning to prepare the marketing materials. If you'd like to go ahead and do that in the normal process. For Alcalde, we'd be doing the nominations between right now and in December. The deadline would be, the nomination committee would meet in early January, and there'd be in late January. Typically, we hold the reception in February. And the reception are always to
Got a
the.
lot of feedback.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to hear.
Does somebody have their?
Yeah, can everybody mute their mic? But I think it's just the sound that's coming from your end. So usually you're pretty clear on these things.
By myself with no outside noise. So, but that reception is in February typically, or March, and both for the treasure artist and the alcalde, that really depends on the honoree schedule. A lot of times we've had individuals in the past who have been out of the country during February. So we've had it in March. We've also changed it to January. It really just depends. It's usually the first time period of the year. Right now, we're looking at COVID still being in place. We haven't seen anything that says we're going to be able to have large receptions or any kind of gatherings over, I think it's still at 12 individuals, if I remember correctly. And we're a very short time away from February and January. So it's really, we'd like to ask council how they would like to proceed. We have received input from members of the public, which were sent directly to each of the council members and also posted on our public correspondence, making a suggestion that we maintain the current honorees for another year because they were not able to do the majority of the events that take place, the city party, the 4th of July parade, the stomping of the grapes, or the reunion of the harvest. So at this time, staff would really like to attain council's direction during these unique circumstances of how you would like to move forward. And that's my report.
Thank you so much, City Clerk Barr. Dawn, do we have any questions from the council on this?
No.
No? Okay, great. So we'll bring it out to public comment and then we'll make council comments. Bring it out to public comment. Public comment is open. Seeing no one rise, we'll go ahead and bring it back to council. Do we have comments from council?
I have a comment. I absolutely think this makes sense. I mentioned to Kathy with respect to the Catalyst Foundation. I did not know that the Blattners were involved. All of a sudden, I have sort of like a public release. So it's a shame. And I know Logan, our mayor, is involved, Rebecca Hermosillo and others. I've spoken to recipients of these grants, but I've never heard anything about it. I understand it seems as if it mirrors something that took place long ago, and I was just looking for it. There's a newsman, his name is Somerville. His father was a very famous philanthropist, similar to what this Catalyst Foundation or fund does. It's quick. It just, you have a need, we'll take care of it. And I think it's a wonderful idea. And for me, I didn't know about it. And so I'm glad that the Blattners are very seriously involved with it and others. Thank you.
A couple comments. This is mostly about the treasure artist, but I guess it could apply to both. I just think we have a lot of amazing artists in town, and this big honor every year. It's really exciting, and that next year another person gets honored. And I always figured that 2021 was going to be like 2 years in one, where it's like you kind of celebrate the things you didn't get to celebrate in 2020, and then you also get a new year. So I think it would make sense to have new people selected for both, but I don't really have very strong feelings about it. I do think that if the council decided not to pick a new alcalde or treasure artist, or rather allow the new mayor and or the CFAC to pick the new people, then maybe it would be a good time for the council to have a discussion about these two particular programs. And because I don't think that's happened in a while, and particularly the alcaldes, I find it interesting if you look back to the beginning of the program and to where it is today, like it's evolved a lot, and like different kinds of people are being selected now versus who was selected in the beginning. And I think that there could be perhaps problems with the existing procedures that result in a lack of diversity in the choices. So we don't pick new people, that's fine. And maybe it's a great reason to go back and look at it and decide what the point of it all is and what our goals are.
I kind of think that, for receiving this honor, part of it is the fun of, getting to participate in a lot of ceremonies. And I know for me and my alcaldessa, we did, like as many social events as possible together. And that was really fun. Sorry, Logan. And so I think it kind of makes sense to let everybody have a second year in this weird time. So it's like, well, maybe you didn't get to have all the fun, but you got the special honor of being the only ones who got 2 years. And hopefully that makes you feel a little bit better. Because I think people, obviously there's many bigger fish to fry, but in these honors, people got gypped. So You know, and I think both our treasure artist and our alcaldes and alcaldesa are outstanding, really nice people. And so I would support it.
Yeah, I would support waiting and keeping the same people on. I mean, you know, with Hula Mai, there was an opportunity to learn about hula and do some of that kind of stuff, and that all got completely shut down. And with the Blattners as well, I think, you know, part of these honors is getting out in the community and being able to do as much work as possible and kind of being able to be celebrated. And I think the next year person, even if we appointed a new person, we're gonna have a new person who's kind of like having a sort of disappointing year. So with the chance that maybe we're able to open up a certain amount, I think it would be nice to give that to the person the folks who didn't really get a chance to experience the positive benefits for that. And if it's not, then we haven't, you know, subjected another honoree to the same sort of like zero. I mean, like having a celebration for your big thing with 12 people is like not super fun, you know? So I think it is about honor, and it's about being able to get out in the community. And I think I agree with Vice Mayor Hundley that looking at the programs and talking about that would be a useful piece of council's time for sure. But I think with regards to this situation, I just think that we should keep the same people on and allow them the chance to have another year where they can really use that title and that position to the best effect. I mean, I wanted to learn hula dancing really bad this year, and it didn't happen. And you know, there was a lot of negatives that happened this year. So I think that giving the chance for these folks to continue on and do good work in our community, and maybe have a year that's a little bit less impacted by COVID. And if not, then they got 2 years, and that's a different honor. And we're not, you know, squashing somebody else's, you know, kind of honor time. So.
I'm sorry. Oh,
no, I'm done.
I have a last comment. I have a last comment. I was comparing Sonoma Valley Catalyst Fund to his name, and now he's deceased. Bill Somerville, president and founder at Philanthropic Ventures Foundation. Similar to what this Sonoma Valley Catalyst Fund is doing, it seems to be a quicker process. You don't have to give your soul, do 5 reports a year, which is ad nauseum. But I think this seems to be similar, and he did wonderful work. And I assume that this Sonoma Valley Catalyst Fund will do as much. And I'm just happy that the Blattners are involved, and you as well, Mr. Mayor.
It's definitely been a fun project and something that we're proud of, and it's just getting going now. And so, yeah, it's been a great work. It's been a lot of work, and thanks to everybody that's involved in that project.
So, Kathy, you sent it to me, the information, if you wanted to share that with other council members. I don't know if you did.
I did.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are we taking a vote?
Do we need to vote, or do we have direction? We're going to vote. Okay.
Council discretion.
Why don't we have a vote so it's clear what the council's decision is?
Move to approve.
Second.
Does that work?
No, it doesn't work. So if your motion,
what you
Move to
said,
begin
Mayor.
street.
That's how I can do that motion. Whatever you said, Mayor, that's the motion.
so what I heard, what I hear,
We need a
majority of council.
motion to continue on with the same treasure artist and you know, the honorary titles that the council produces, that the alcalde, the treasure artist, and whatever other ones we appoint will continue on for the 2021.
And I will second that then.
I guess that's my motion, and we got a second, and we're set. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Agrimonti,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hundley,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The
Okay,
motion
and-
carries.
Mayor Harvey, I think what I'll ask is I'll ask our city clerk to prepare a letter to the recipients under your signature, letting them know that it'll be extended and the action of the council. There was a suggestion by Vice Mayor Hundley, and I want to see if there's support to look at both these programs. The treasure artist really is reviewed, you know, has historically been reviewed by the CFAC. I don't know when council's looked at that recently. The alcalde, I think we did a review and update that of 2 years ago, I think, maybe 2.5, but.
Well, it came up because there was an interest in changing some of the procedures, but the council hasn't really had like a, I would say, a more historic look at it and like a discussion of its purposes. That was more of like strictly about like a procedural thing that resulted for something specific that had happened.
Yeah, if there were a variety of things we looked at, but again, it's full council. I just want to say that it was freshened, I would say. Maybe that's the word, a couple of years ago on some of the logistics. But happy if council wants, I just want to be clear. So if there's support from council to bring it forward, then we can put it on the long range agenda.
Are we authorized to agendize things tonight?
Brown Act allows you to put some item on a future agenda, yes.
And I think it's within the realm of this discussion too. I'm supportive of having the conversation about it and just kind of overlooking the program. It's something I've
So that's part of the motion.
Maybe
direction of staff.
there's separate motion or again, I've heard from two folks. I didn't hear from a majority of the council. So I'm just looking for a clear direction. If Madeline or Amy are supportive too, then we'll bring it forward. That's great.
I'm supportive.
Okay, great. Then we'll go ahead and put that probably on first quarter of 21. We'll look at trying to slide that in.
Perfect.
Okay.
Well, just on a timing thing, I mean, I don't know if there's any rush for it. I did the city manager search and stuff, it would be here in the summer when everything starts to. I just don't see a rush to do it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we wouldn't be appointing till winter next
Yeah,
year.
we have till December, basically.
Okay. So it could be summer, fall.
2021 is going to be like. So.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
We'll just put it up. We'll put it on the 21 and because we have a long range calendar and we'll list it there. And just be clear, I'll call day and treasure artist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Beautiful. On to item 6.5, presentation of the merger of Redwood Empire Municipal Insurance Fund with the Public Agency Risk Sharing Authority of California to create California Intergovernmental Risk Authority. City Insurance.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Harvey.
Sorry, Assistant City.
Yeah, so looking for if Sue Casey, our Assistant City Manager, is brought forward, and then she's going to, is Amy on? Sorry, is Sue on?
Here she is.
Okay. So Sue will take lead on this item.
Happen.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Harvey and council members. Tonight we're presenting information on the merger of the Redwood Empire Municipal Insurance Fund, or REMIF, with the Public Agency Risk Sharing Authority of California, also known as PARSAC, to create the California Intergovernmental Risk Authority. And so rather than purchase insurance to a commercial insurance carrier, the city of Sonoma participates in an intergovernmental arrangement through which a group of cities contribute to a shared fund that pays for liability and workers' compensation claims and provides risk management services. That fund, which is referred to as a joint powers authority, allows two or more like entities to pool funds to pay for claims. The city of Sonoma is currently a member of the pool named the Redwood Empire Municipal Insurance Fund, or REMIF, which represents 15 small to medium-sized cities. REMIF was formed in 1976 with a mission to provide workers' compensation coverage in response to increasing and unaffordable commercial rates. And then the coverage was expanded in the mid-1980s to include liability coverage and other services. And tonight we are very pleased to have Amy Northam, the General Manager for REMIF, to provide more information and details on the merger of REMIF with the Public Agency Risk Sharing Authority of California, also known as PARSAC, to create the California Intergovernmental Risk Authority. So I'm going to turn it over to Amy.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you for the introduction. So my name is Amy Northam. I'm the General Manager of REMIF, and I'm here to discuss the merger of REMIF with another organization just like us to create a new organization called CIRA. So I'm kind of going to do a who, what, when, where, why type of presentation. And then I certainly welcome any questions at the end. So as Sue mentioned, rather than purchase commercial insurance through a commercial insurance carrier, Sonoma's actually partnered with 14 other cities and towns to pool their money to pay for liability and workers' comp claims. So the cities contribute to a shared fund or a pot. They collect all the money from all of the members and pot that money and use that money to pay for claims. This fund is commonly referred to as a pool. So Sonoma is a member of the pool called the Redwood Empire Municipal Insurance Fund. And REMIF is governed by a board of directors comprised of members of the pool. So each one of our members has an equal vote at the table. And also, as Sue mentioned, public entity pools are fundamentally different from conventional insurance. The primary purpose of a public entity pool is to manage and reduce underlying risks to the benefit of all of the members, while commercial insurers exist primarily to finance losses and primarily to make profit. So what is REMIF? REMIF is a public entity pool representing 15 small to medium-sized cities and towns. We're in 5 different counties in Northern California. We're in Napa, Sonoma, Lake, Mendocino, and Humboldt County. Generally speaking, we run up and down the 101 corridor. We were formed in 1976 to provide workers' comp coverage. And in the mid-1980s, we expanded coverage to include liability and some other lines. And many other lines have been added since that time, including the REMIF self-insured health plan. PARSAC, like REMIF, is a public entity pool, but they represent 34 small to medium-sized cities and towns. And they actually have 1 fire district as well. They were formed in 1986 to provide liability coverage, and then coverage was expanded in 1990 to include workers' comp. So we started with workers' comp and expanded to liability. They started with liability and expanded to workers' comp. They have other lines of coverage as well. The main difference between us as far as our lines of coverage is PARSAC does not offer a self-insured health plan, and we'll talk about that a little more later. REMIF and PARSAC provide that pooled program for liability, workers' comp, and then for group purchased or for property, auto physical damage, cyber liability, crime coverage, we group purchase that. So we get together and purchase a commercial policy for those. The pools are actually incredibly similar. They have a similar philosophy. They both believe in focusing on financial stability. Both boards have a conservative funding and investment philosophy. They share a similar philosophy that to have discussions with the members that are both constructive and collaborative. They encourage participation from the members and balance the members' individual interests with those of the whole pool working towards a greater good. We also have similar culture. We both believe that the pools are member-owned, member-governed, and member-driven. Both exist to serve its members. They are similar in that they both serve medium to small-sized cities and towns, and they share a similar footprint in Northern California, although PARSAC does have presence throughout the entire state. For example, REMIF has St. Helena and the city of Sonoma, while PARSAC has Yountville and Calistoga. So given the similarities between the two agencies, REMIF and PARSAC have explored a strategic partnership. When we started down this path, the strategic partnership could have been anything from sharing training resources to a full-blown merger. And what has resulted is the boards of both entities have directed the merger of the two organizations. But rather than one pool merging into the other, rather than PARSAC merging into REMIF or REMIF merging into PARSAC, we're actually creating a new pool or a new public entity called CIRA, and the members of both pools will actually feed into CIRA. So why would we do this? If I were to summarize the reason that we're doing it, it's really to add both depth and breadth to the organization. And the side benefit will be a savings, hopefully, to both entities. There will be great benefits in sharing resources and sharing expenses and drawing on our strengths. There will be built-in succession planning. There will be more robust and stable programs, as well as more training resources. The intent is to eliminate redundancies and actually to add redundancies as well. So, we are working, both entities are working and both are doing actuarial reports, both are doing audits and hiring financial auditors. So if we can eliminate some of those costs, it will ultimately save the pool money. At the same time, we're creating redundancies in our staffing and in our programs as well. We'll also have economies of scale growing from 15 members to 50 members. And while a merger could have a realized savings to both pools, the intent is to have long-term stability and sustainability. It is not for savings. We would really add depth and breadth to the agencies, and the singular goal, again, is to better serve our members. While the intent is really to merge the liability, workers' comp, and property programs, there's also an interest to have the self-insured, the REMIF self-insured health plan remain under the care, custody, and control of REMIF, at least for the time being. So we'll keep REMIF off to its side. There was an interest from the REMIF board to have the REMIF healthcare plan remain under REMIF, so we will do that, and then merge the other programs. So the documents that you will be presented at the next city council meeting reflect exactly that. You'll have a set of documents to create CIRA and a set of documents to allow REMIF to exist for purposes of the health plan. So what's the financial impact? The merger will consolidate the operations and expenses of both pools. CIRA will work towards eliminating those redundant expenses, those duplicative expenses, the actuarial reports and the financial audits. Consolidating operations will also achieve greater economy of scale and improve service delivery. We'll be in a position to leverage our larger size for better services and better rates and better coverage with service providers and with our excess insurance. A larger organization will also result in more predictable funding and more stable funding, which will reduce the likelihood of assessments. And the merged organization will be more fiscally viable and provide greater long-term stability and sustainability. However, as I mentioned before, we're not merging to save money. We hope that that's a byproduct, but the intent is really to create more stability and sustainability. So this will happen on July 1st of 2021. We have been directed by both of our boards to proceed with a July 1st, 2021 date. That's actually a very aggressive timeline. So we're working very actively towards making that happen. And again, we're not presenting the documents at this meeting, but at the next city council meeting, and there'll be one set of documents for CIRA to approve the creation of CIRA and one set of documents to allow REMIF to continue to exist for purposes of the healthcare plan. Does anybody have any questions?
I guess so. What are we deciding on tonight? It sounds like we're kind of waiting until next meeting. We're just getting information tonight. Okay, great. Do we have questions from council? All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and move it out to public comment. And seeing no one rise, I'll go ahead and bring it back to council. So I'll just say, I mean, I think this makes a lot of sense. I mean, the way I understand insurance, which is at a very, very base level, but it's, you know, as we broaden the pool and we have more people in there, the risk decreases in terms of total loss and things like that. So that maybe you can get some cost savings. It makes sense to combine them and be able to eliminate redundancies. And it also kind of broadens the amount of money that can be drawn from if you have a total loss and the rest of it. So it kind of adds stability to that pool for all the members involved. I'm very glad to know that we're part of a public and kind of all municipal insurance organization. I had spoken with an individual, a member of the public previously, and they were concerned around what our insurance was because some of these insurance companies also insure things like oil companies and the rest of it. So it's nice to be involved in a public utility like that. And, you know, I go up to Tacoma fairly often and almost everything that they have there is public utility, right? Like all their garbage is public utility, their electricity is public utility, their cable is public utility, all of that. So it's kind of nice that we have at least one of those, which I think are run with often with a bit more transparency and often with a bit more efficiency as well. So I'm supportive of this. I think this is an interesting idea, and it's nice to get a history of REMIF and get a better understanding of how that organization came to be and kind of where we are now. So I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's a smart move and should add stability as well as save money. So win-win.
I have a question. Is there any thought that there's going to be any cost impact to the existing members of either agency, but more importantly, REMIF, because that's what we are.
There's no, if you're asking, will costs go up on 7/1 of 21? I can almost guarantee that they will go up on 7/21, but that's going to happen regardless if we merge with Parsac or not. Our claims are going up, property insurance is going up, workers' comp is stabilized, but we do anticipate increases in liability and in property. But yes, we do anticipate a fiscal benefit for this, and long term that will hopefully be a reduction, because we're going to be eliminating a lot of redundant services and that we're doing right now, a lot of operational pieces that we're both doing. So if we can combine those operational expenses, it will cost less money to CIRA as the whole pool, because those costs get spread out between 50 members instead of REMIF's costs getting just spread between 15 members.
Totally, that makes sense. And since we have someone that understands all of this, has the fires had an impact on the costs that you all have had to spend on property insurance and things like that?
Yes, unfortunately, REMIF did have, one of our members did have some losses this most recent fire. We had some losses last year as well. The 2017 fires, we only had a small amount of losses. So as big as that fire was, it wasn't as bad. So yes, unfortunately, we did have some losses, and that will affect our property renewals. I'm hoping it won't affect them significantly, but I have to be realistic as well. We will see rates go up.
Totally, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Comments from other members of council?
Mayor Harvey, if no other sorry.
Madeline's trying to make a comment.
Oh, so I accept this presentation. It sounds like a good idea. I cannot share as eloquently as our mayor, but I do feel that it's very good.
Good view.
Mayor Harvey, maybe if I could just make two statements before council maybe moving to a vote. I want to thank.
Have we done public comment?
Oh, we did it, but there's nobody here.
Oh, okay. Then I have one comment after Kat.
So I just want to thank Sue Casey, our assistant city manager, and Kathy Lanning, our administrative services manager, who sit as board members on REMIF, and it takes quite a bit of time. And I also want to acknowledge that Amy, we've been very lucky since Amy came on about 3 years ago now or so. Amy has just been a breath of fresh air, brought a lot of new protocols and best practices to REMIF. Prior agency was on the Parsac board for 8 years. It is a very well-run organization, creative. So I was really delighted to hear about this merger, because I think it really will provide everything that Amy says. I'm excited for both organizations to have this merger, and I want to thank our staff's team and Amy's team. It's a lot of work to do what's being done. And I also just want to clarify one thing. We're bringing this forward now so that there's questions, and at the next meeting, you will see the JPA agreements on consent.
Cool. And I just wanted to add that I found this really helpful and informative, and our insurance is a little bit different from the private world, and it's nice to get when we have an opportunity to hear about what ours is like. So thank you, Amy.
You're welcome. And I forgot to add a very important piece. REMIF is actually headquartered here in the city of Sonoma. So we're right on West Napa Street. And so if you see the 2-story building on the corner of West Napa and 4th Street, that's us.
Well, you chose the best city, so that's great.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Amy, and to Sue and our teams that have been working so hard on this. And I think this is a great idea. And if Kathy's comfortable and knows more about Parsec, then I'm even more comfortable about something that I already thought was a good idea. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time and educating all of us. And we'll see it on consent soon.
Thank you.
Amy.
Thank you, Sue. Absolutely.
Thank you, Sue.
All right. And moving right along, item 6.6. See, with that 9 o'clock stop time, we would have been, we're fine tonight. Discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve a resolution and employment agreement adopting Dave Kiff as interim city manager effective January 1, 2021. Kathy.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Harvey, members of council. So as you all are aware, I'm going to be retiring the end of December, and council has been looking for the last couple months and had a number of highly qualified candidates. After a review process has chosen to move forward with Dave Kiff. Give you a little background on Dave. He is a retired city manager. He currently is the interim city manager at the city of Healdsburg, where he actually grew up. He spent most of his career down in Southern California, 20 years with the city of Newport Beach and 9 years of that as city manager. He also worked in the county of Orange and the California state legislature. As I said, he grew up in Healdsburg, moved back here about a year ago to retire, and has not done that successfully so far. So he was the interim manager, city manager with Huntington Beach for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, helped them out, then came up here, was planning on retiring, COVID hit, and he wanted to help out his hometown. And so he helped city manager there on some special projects with COVID before the city manager there announced his resignation to take a position up in Tahoe. And so David's been serving, I think, since July as the interim city manager in Healdsburg. Just a few things for council. What is on your agenda tonight for you to take action on is a resolution, which has been taken from PERS, the California Public Employees Retirement System. It's a model that they recommend that we use. Again, Mr. Kiff, and I have a hard time calling that because I work with him regularly on city manager calls in the last 6 months, but he is a retiree, and so there are legal requirements in hiring a retiree. And there's also Government Code 54953, which the city attorney reminds me requires an oral report that the legislative body shall have. And so, Mayor Harvey, with your approval, I will give that oral report about the compensation parameters. So basically the agreement, the employment agreement from you goes from January 1 through December 31st. The way the PERS regulations work, you cannot extend this agreement. You can do it once and it can't be extended. So because of that, excuse me, and because of all the uncertainty with COVID, and it's just an uncertain time in hiring and employment times, we wanted to make sure, and Mr. Kiff was supportive, that if he needed to stay longer while the council did a recruitment, we should not take that long. Hopefully this recruitment will be ready and you'll have a new permanent manager in place sometime probably mid-summer, late summer of 21. But in case Mr. Kiff is willing, the agreement lays through December 31st. And again, he can only stay in place while there is an active recruitment in place. And this is how it works when you have a city manager vacancy or department head vacancy. It is an hourly rate of $91.90 per hour. That is my current salary taken into an hourly rate, and that is what is required. You can't pay Mr. Kiff any more or any less than what is on the current your current published salaries, and he will receive no benefits. The council can reimburse for expenses that he might incur, but there's no benefits in this kind of a hiring of a PERS retiree. So with that, I'd be happy to turn it to the mayor. I will just say, having worked with Dave in the last 6 months, I think one unique piece of hiring an interim is he knows Sonoma County. Has been working with us on COVID and homelessness and emergencies, and worked the Walbridge fires, and some of that is a unique set of skills that isn't always available. So with that, I'll turn it to the mayor and council, and happy to answer any questions.
Great. Questions from council?
None from me, Mr. Mayor.
I'm seeing and hearing none. I'm going to open it up for public comment. Seeing no one rise, go ahead and give it another second and close public comment. Comments from council?
I have a comment. I know from my professional role that it's a very tough market right now for hiring these chief executive positions, and I feel very lucky that that we had a pool of good candidates, and that David Kiff has already been here in Sonoma County and has experienced Sonoma County's some of their our challenges, and I think that we're going to be in great hands while we have time to search for our permanent. And I'm glad that we have a little bit of time so we can keep looking until we find the right person. But I'm excited to meet Mr. Kiff, but of course I'm sad about all of this because it means that Ms. Capriola is inching towards retirement. But I will be supporting this tonight.
Great. Comments of other council members?
I think, we were lucky we had, for a small town, we had an incredible field of candidates, and it was really hard, even amongst the candidates we had, to select one. I think Dave, with his experience and also connection to Healdsburg, he's from Healdsburg originally, is a great option. And, we're just so lucky to live here and that people want to work here, and I'm looking forward to the good work he's going to do. So I think and I think Kathy and the team she's put together have really cleared away a lot of work over the last 4 years that make it possible for someone to pretty seamlessly take over the reins. So great job on that front, Kathy and others.
Councilmember Agrimonti?
I'm very comfortable with the path that we're taking. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, I'd reflect the comments of our previous council members. I thought that we had a really incredible pool of talent that came before us to look at this position, and we're lucky as such a small town to have that. For me, Dave's work with the business community up there and his management of that, his understanding of the county and connections there was really a key factor. And so we're lucky to have them and bring them in. And I would also agree, this is, it's a bittersweet moment because we're getting a great person, but we're losing a fantastic city manager and a great representative. And so we've got more praises to sing for you, Kathy, but I'll reserve them for another later meeting. But I think it will be, it'll still be COVID, so it'll be rougher, it'll be some wins, but definitely smoother sailing, I think, now that a lot of the cobwebs have been cleared and a lot of great work has been done. So, and I think it's nice that we have this great runway with a good interim to really give the city the time it needs to really think about the next city manager, interview them well, and understand, who we're getting and who we're bringing to the city. So I think we're in a privileged position with that, for sure. All right, so we need a motion to approve.
Yes, need a motion to approve the resolution.
So move. That work?
Read it? Do we have to read it? No.
Somebody's got a second.
Second.
There we
Second.
go. And we'll do a roll call vote. City Clerk Rebecca Martin. Thank you.
Councilmember Agrimonti,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hundley,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Bye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. Carries 401.
All right. Awesome. On to item 7.1, committee reports. Any council member comments or reports?
No, none.
Seeing none.
Don't forget to vote.
Don't forget to vote, indeed.
That's it.
City manager comments or reports?
Just a few brief updates on kind of COVID-related work. So the city convened about a month ago, Sonoma Valley Latinx COVID Support Task Force made up of city, county, public health, business community, key nonprofits like LaLuz and Fish that have gotten some of the CARES Act funding and some of the new funding that the Board of Supervisors has put in to try to support the Latinx community, which is being kind of unduly hit by the pandemic in terms of cases, et cetera. So this group is meeting weekly. There's been Catalyst Fund is also represented. So there's a lot of good work that's happening here to really, how do we work together to make sure all the kind of holes and linkages are made so that we really are supporting the funding coming from the county and make sure it gets executed in the best way possible to support the valley overall. Also, I just want to tell the community the county is also putting a generator in at the Vets Memorial Building. That should be done, a permanent generator in place by summer, hopefully of next year. That'll be great to not have to have a temporary generator out there with fire season. And we also have got a lot more testing that's come based on the county's efforts. So we have testing on Mondays, and I think we'll soon have testing on Wednesdays. So a lot more testing coming to the Valley. Business recovery, we continue to work with Mayor Harvey and Vice Mayor Hundley on our business expansion recovery. So parklets, pedestrian passageways. The team's also working to try to get greater clarification on canopies and heaters, because we really need some of that assistance. And so I want to thank Wayne Wyrick and Fire Marshal working closely on that. And then we're just remind folks, even though it's continue to be careful, it still is fire season, and we need to get a good rain before we're out of that. There's also some good holiday activities, not events coming. And so we'll have more to share on that here soon. So that's it. Thank you, Mayor Harvey.
The only thing I'd say is, Kathy, it may be a good idea to just kind of bring some of that COVID-19 response stuff to council in kind of a presentation form. I don't know if you think it would be worthwhile, but that may be something that would be interesting.
Yeah, we're actually working on kind of, are you talking about the Latinx piece or some of the?
Like the Cura program and then the testing and that.
Yeah, so we can look at doing that maybe. Yes, let me figure out when we could do a little bit of an update, but we definitely, there's a broader kind of public outreach and update of some of that that's in process.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much for all the work you're doing and all the work you're doing, especially, the amount of work that Wayne did to put together some of those restrictions or the guidelines that both Vice Mayor Hundley and I saw. It's incredible.
Truly amazing work. Well done.
We're leading the county in multiple ways here. We really are. Go ahead, City Attorney Jeff Walter.
I have no comments tonight.
That's pretty huge. All right, wonderful. Well, go ahead. And we're all set, so we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting of the Sonoma City Council. Thank you, everyone, for joining us and for your time and dedication to the city.
Great meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.